Invisiblekatana here with my excessively late reviews for the final 4 episodes of iZombie. If you guys hadn't seen my last video as to why I haven't been putting anything on my YouTube channel, you guys can check that out. I'll put a link in the description. I never remember to put the little I in whatever side it is, but maybe I'll remember to do it this time. But definitely check the description because there will certainly be a link in there. I'm gonna go through the episodes somewhat individually because I did make notes because I was so far behind. I was like, I don't want to just be like this, and this. I actually took some notes for each episode. I actually kind of rewatched and added a couple more notes just before doing this video because I was like, all right, I have my notes, and even with the notes, I was like, well, I can say this, but I don't remember the context of anything. Like, this scene was cool, and I was like, I just put a person's name, and that was a cool scene, and I was like, I have to see the scene. I don't know what the heck I'm even talking about. So went through the last 4 episodes again. Really good to watch the ending. I pretty much watched the last 10 minutes of the final episode all over again, just all the way through. But I wanted to make the notes and kind of do this and just kind of have every single episode give it its own props and just talk about my overall thoughts about the series, the finale, what I liked and didn't like through the last couple of episodes and things like that. But of course, we will start with the fourth from the last episode, which was our crazy. All the episodes are crazy and funny, but it was the noir episode, which was Night and the Zombie City. So that was a pretty good episode. It's the one where Liv actually learned about her father. So I remember my big thing was I don't know if they're gonna do kind of like most shows where it's people find out something and then the main person that needs to find out won't find out for another 2 or 3 episodes. I knew we were close to the end at the time, so I didn't know how fast it was gonna end up going. But she actually found out in the very next episode. Robbie was just like, hey, your dad's Beanpole Bob. So she finds out that secret, and it's a huge deal. It's all right, kind of sets him on that path. The main focus of that episode was that there was someone that was killed, one of the two, I guess technically they were just straight up prostitutes that worked at the bar. So it was Candy, and I think the woman that died her name was Bunny, if I'm not mistaken, who I don't think they ever shown. This woman mysteriously died, and it's yeah, she was the other woman. I was like, I feel like I've never seen her before ever. I remember Candy a bunch because she's been there for seasons. Actually, she just has small bit pieces. But I'm I don't remember them saying there was another woman at all. She was probably in there somewhere, but I'm I just don't ever remember this woman in any way, shape, or form. But the whole thing was, it was all right, well, what's going on? Why'd this dude get murdered? What was happening here? They find out that she actually had a cure. And pretty much through the whole episode, it's this big thing where it's all right, how do we figure out where this cure is? Where is this cure? It's another cure, so that's a bunch of money for Blaine. That's possibly evidence for the cops. So then that leads to Blaine versus Liv, which was a pretty great scene. That, of course, leads to Crybaby actually getting arrested himself because he was probably the one that did the dirty work. So of course Blaine is well, I can totally tell you exactly what happened. He did it, and that's all there is to it. So of course he got away with that because you have to keep the main villain around for the last couple episodes. Good fight scene though, Liv versus Blaine. That was pretty entertaining, and they're slamming each other and all sorts of crap in this kitchen. So that was a fun scene. Definitely enjoyed that. Peyton was pretty much just suffering after being fired and just being drunk and doing the karaoke and stuff like that. But it was definitely a good episode. Like I said, not much really happened in that one outside of cool noir stuff. Definitely funny. Liv finding out about her dad. Blaine and Liv actually having the fight, and then of course at the end we find out that the cure was in the jacket, and they tried to figure out where the slip was so that they could get to the cure. But they were all beat there by Bunny, who takes the jacket, or by Candy, who takes the jacket and the cure, and then she takes off. So she's free, and she gets to go out and live her life, and that's the last we see of her. And that leads, of course, into the next episode, which is Killer Queen. And I've got 5 notes for this. First one, of course, and this shows up towards the end of the episode, but I guess all of these are kind of at the end of the episode. Really, everything kind of stacks on top of each other, probably in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the episode. So of course the big question was, which obviously we know the answer to, but it was did Blaine kill Darcy? Did he kill her? And of course, because he finds out about Don E, which we find out his last name I think was Eberhard or something like that, and I was that's cool, they put that in the final season. We find out what the E stands for, because it was always Don E. I can't even remember his brother's name, but even their mom, they called her Mom E. So it was oh, we found E is for Eberhard. Long name, so it makes sense why they cut it down to E. So he's super pissed, and it's Blaine, the main villain. It was I kind of feel like it makes perfect sense that would end up happening, that he would kill her. But of course, and they even do this weird look where he's we still have to deliver it to the clients, but take your time. And then they focus on his face, and he's doing this and stuff, evil bug eyes and stuff. I was I'm pretty sure he did it. And so that was a crazy moment, of course, watching. I was just man, that sucks. Like, Donnie is in that really weird middle ground where it's like, obviously, he's been with Blaine, so he's definitely, like, one of the bad, he's the number 2 bad guy, technically. And it's just like, I like him, though. Like, Blaine's a dick, period. But Donnie is like, alright, he's kind of a douchebag. That's kind of how Donnie is. Like, he's a dick, and then Donnie's just like, he's kind of a douchebag, but he's cool. It's okay. So it's one of those crazy things where it's like, man, he just got pissed, and of course, Blaine doing all the things he did, it was really his own fault. So it's just one of those moments where it's like, honestly, with all the crap Blaine did, that's the least Donnie could do is kind of push him out to make more money. That's what Blaine does all the effing time, but it's Blaine, so of course that big question came up, and I was just like, I can't trust Blaine. Of course he did. He had to have done that. They just found her and she died, which is possible because of the whole thing, the Fraley brain. It was like, I just don't think that was the case. So that was the big question. And then, of course, we have Ravi and Major rescuing the other Fraley kids. That was just a pretty cool scene. And Ravi was supposed to just be the lookout. I always thought that was just a funny scene where he's like, maybe this lookout can look at something else. And he ends up finding the kids, so it was actually a really good idea. And he's the one who actually ends up saving Major because he runs that one guy over. So I was like, all right, good lookout move. So they end up saving a bunch of extra kids. So that was a good scene. Graham finds out that his boyfriend was actually killed, and that's what ends up forcing him. At that point, he doesn't have any reason to hide anything, even though technically it's too late. But he ends up revealing to Liv, like, hey, I couldn't say anything because of this. And that's when she goes into, like, really confronting her dad, which unfortunately leads to him actually getting killed at the end, because she's having that moment where she's kind of really pressuring him. And it's him and the French dude. I swear I can't remember his name. I just watched like 2 episodes and I still don't remember that dude's name. But he's like, we have to like get things going. Like, the women are in place. Do they eat the brains now and kind of, get all the tech stuff going? Like, what's the deal? What are we going to do? And he didn't want to push anymore. And he ends up getting killed, which admittedly I felt was one of the things going into like the finale and just in general, like the last couple episodes, that was one of the things I did feel was like a tiny bit rushed. I still love the scene because I thought it was a great scene, especially with just everything that was happening, like my questions with what was going on with Blaine possibly killing Darcy and them rescuing the kids. Like, a lot of stuff was coming together at one time, so I still really enjoyed the moment. But I did feel like, oh, that kind of sucks that he died, because I was hoping, of course, because they do the thing where he gets shot in the back of the head, but he has like the metal plate, and I was like, okay, maybe he's gonna live and he's gonna end up killing the French dude, but he'll still have that struggle. It'll be like, he'll just do the thing where it's like, sorry, but I do have to do this. Like, he ultimately decides to kind of, he picks a side. He is like, either he chooses his daughter or he chooses, his own path. And I thought that that's what was going to happen. He was going to end up killing the French dude, and he was actually going to do that and just end up fighting against his own daughter, which personally I think would have been more entertaining, just because of the fact that it adds just a story dynamic to it, as where, with the French dude, it was like, yeah, he betrayed Major, but it's like, he was just a dude. Like, they weren't like best friends. It wasn't like his buddy when he was the one that betrayed him. That was different. It was like, oh, that actually sucked, because they were really close in like previous seasons. And then the French dude was just like a funny character. Like, that's literally how he came into the show. Is like, this random French dude was working for Fillmore Graves, and it was just funny. So it was like not as big of a connection. So I was a little disappointed by that, where it's like, oh, they killed him. But in the moment, it was like, just watching it, I was like, I still enjoy the scene. I thought it was a good scene, and of course, it's a very emotional moment. But I didn't like that as much as I could have, because I'm like, I would have much rather he did kill the French guy, and then it was Liv's dad as the main villain. I personally still would have preferred that, but like I said, still enjoyed it. And of course, that leads into the last 2 episodes. So the penultimate episode of the series, we have By Zombies. Probably one of the best, like, penultimate, for anyone who doesn't know, like, the definition, penultimate is literally just the thing before the last. Probably one of the best episodes you could possibly have right before the last episode, because the Ocean's Heist thing, super funny. Clive was freaking hilarious the whole way through, like, dancing and stuff, and he wasn't even on brains. And then Liv and Ravi on the brains, like, the whole episode, I thought it was probably one of my favorite ones, just as far as the comedy goes. So that just made it one of my favorites as a whole. But they go through, they do the heist, everything works out. For some reason, the racist security guard thing always cracks me up, because it's just so dumb. And it's just like, he looks at the screen and it's just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And Clive's just like, all right, success. And I just always found it so funny. It's just like a tiny little scene, and it's just like, that's good. That was just a random little thing, but I love that, them switching the brains. Like I said, Ravi almost getting busted, and he has to like fake convince this woman that, like, you're too good for me and stuff like that. And like, I just couldn't handle it at the time. Like, go on and do your thing and grow and blossom and stuff like that. So it was just really funny. But everything they did, I thought was hilarious. Um, Clive dancing with his woman and stuff like that, and kind of teasing her, and then having to constantly pull her back and stuff, and then Liv has to go in and be like, "Hey, I saw you flirt with my husband," and she was like, "Thanks for that," and the other woman was like, "You're welcome," and she was just happy about it. And I was like, "This is just so silly and funny," but it was incredibly well done. So I loved all of that stuff. Let's see what else. Oh, the Blaine scene. That's when things start to get intense again. Once it gets towards the end of the episode, they of course get the cure. But the scene with Blaine where he actually figures out what's going on and he goes in, he kills one of the coyotes, and all the kids are freaking out. Of course, Peyton's freaking out, and it's just like, this is insane. This is a really tense scene because I didn't know. I mean, I guess in the moment I wasn't really thinking it, but I was like, he might shoot somebody else, but it's like, of course he won't shoot the kids because he wants to use them for money. I wasn't thinking that at the time though. It was just like, this is pretty crazy. I'm not 100% sure what's gonna happen. So fantastic scene, love that. Of course, Donnie comes in with the comedy, like, this is super cool, like the closet secret door thing, and then he's like, oh, not everybody's gonna fit like that. That's his thing. Like, there's a dude dead on the ground. He's just like, He literally like points in the background, like counting the kids, and like, I don't think everybody's gonna fit. Little stuff like that is just entertaining. So that was a fantastic scene. And then of course we have the very end of the episode leading to the finale, and Major's been completely abandoned. Like, when the truck got attacked, I was like, this is a good scene because they're just talking. It's like, all right, we're going from point A to point B. They're having their conversation already where one of the guys is like, hey, our people have a reason to be mad. And it's like, look, we're not going in to just kill humans because Major's, that type of guy. And it's like, I think he said, like, stay sharp, and then an explosion goes off, and then it's just chaos. And it's like, all right, they get surrounded. It's like, this is what you can do. Die here or join me. And then Major just gets abandoned. So he gets abandoned, he jumps into the water, and then he's by himself at the end of the episode. There's like helicopters flying and people shooting at each other. It's like, full on apocalypse mode. And he has to somehow get back to Fillmore Grave so that he can get the max rages for the cure when everybody comes back home. So of course that leads into the finale, which has a ton of stuff. For an hour, it was really good. There's so much packed into it. It's kind of funny that it was just a normal episode. I wish it was longer. Also, I wish they played like the full opening because it was the final episode. But most shows don't do that, where they do like a short thing. So I was kind of upset by that. I was like, man, I wish they did like the full opening for the final episode. But most shows do that, where they'll just do the short opening for like the final episode. Hey, if you watch anime, they don't even do the opening for a lot of anime. It's just like the credits just start playing, and it's just the episode goes, and they just put the people's names over whatever's happening. So you don't even get actual credits for like anime and stuff like that. So I'm kind of used to that sort of thing. But going into it, it was a really good episode. I was excited to see what they were going to do. Who was going to live, who was going to die, what was going to happen with the cure, what was going to happen with the war, what was going to happen with Blaine, Peyton, Donnie. All this stuff was happening all at one time. And it's like, all right, you got 60 minutes, less than that, but like 45 minutes or so of content to end out, 5 years of a series. And I was like, all right, let's see what they end up doing. So I think all my notes are pretty much in order for this one. So we have Ravi, Clive, and Liv all on this plane. We find out that Dale's having the baby. So that was really funny because I was like, all right, this woman is looking up Liv. It's like, all right, we need to figure something out. Fortunately, Clive happened to be next to the dude who is using drugs to fall asleep. So the plan was to just drug her, knock her out, everything's good. Clive finds out Dale's going into labor, which is just, a crazy thing that happens. So they're freaking out. Then we have, of course, Major going to Fillmore Graves, and he's trying to figure out his plan. So he goes in. They've already done the television broadcast. Like, all right, this is how things are going to play out now. All steak, no carrot. If you fight us, this is what'll happen. So they're doing Romero zombies, which I thought was a cool thing. I think that's the first time they've ever actually done that, and I think it was only in the finale. They may have done it somewhere else, and I just forgot. But I don't think they'd ever actually shown anyone get scratched by a Romero zombie and then instantly turn into another Romero zombie. So I thought that was actually cool. I was like, oh man, I kind of wish that we got to see more of that. And like I said, I probably forgot because it's been 5 seasons. But I don't think that's something that we've ever seen where if someone is a Romero zombie and they get scratched by one, they'll turn into one. It's not just, oh, you turn into a zombie. You instantly go for Romero. So I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, that's a cool concept that I kind of wish we got to see a little bit more of because I just thought that was entertaining. But they have the broadcast. Major ends up turning himself in. So we have, Team A is, stuck on the plane. Team B, which is really just Major, he's trying to find his way back into Fillmore Graves, and he pretty much just turns himself in. We find out that the woman on the flight, when she picks up the iPad. I'll just assume it was an iPad. She picks up the iPad and it's like, oh, it's Renegade. Like that's who this woman in disguise is. So she ends up helping him and it's like, hey, this is my brother Michael. So I put this in my notes. The dude's name was Michael Jackson because his last name was Jackson on his thing. And she's like, this is my brother Michael. And I don't know why they did that, but I thought that was super funny because as soon as she said it, she was like, this is my brother Michael. And I was like, his last name is Jackson. This dude's name is Michael Jackson. I just thought that was super funny. And they clearly did that on purpose because they could have put any name they wanted. But they were like, let's have this dude's name. You know, it says Jackson. And it's like, this is my brother Michael. And I was like, why'd they name that guy Michael Jackson? And I just thought that was funny. So I wanted to point that out for anyone that may have missed it. If you watch it again, I mean, it's just right there. But the cop's name, the flight attendant's brother, he was like, yeah, his name was Michael Jackson. So I just thought that was funny. So I had that in my notes. I just thought that was good. But everyone gets off the plane. They get escorted. I was trying to say the word correctly. They get escorted back home. The kids are missing. Of course, Clive has to take off because like I got to, get to my wife and my baby. Crazy little thing. I don't know if this was planned either. But when he gets to the hospital and he tries to open the door, he like cracks the window, and I was like, that would have to be on purpose because the glass wouldn't be like, even if it was a real hospital, the glass, even if he hit it that hard, it wouldn't crack like that because he would have to hit it with such insane force for that to happen. Or that was just an insane fluke and it was real and he was like really in the moment in the acting and he legitimately cracked it. Or they just put that in a CG. That was also possible, but it looked like it was real. But I didn't really even think of that until like just now, that it could have been like a CG thing just to put in. But that also seems pointless to add that CG effect. Like he's so serious about getting to his kid. It's like, obviously, he bullets down the street. Like we knew it was serious. They wouldn't have to add like a CG effect on cracked glass. So I think that was real. I think he actually did that. And like I said, I don't know if that was. Maybe that whole set was a prop anyway, because that's a thing that happens in TV shows. Like a lot of shows will use the same set. For instance, if you watch like Arrow or like 5 other shows, there's like this one little hallway section that's used in like a million different DC shows. It's actually kind of funny. It was used in Smallville and they've used it in Arrow, and I think they've used it in Flash as well. So Warner Brothers just owns like this asylum looking place, and they use that set. They've used that set in like 4 different shows that I've actually watched before. So it could just be a set and he just happened to like push on the glass super hard because it's technically not like real glass, or it's not like super tough glass, I should say, and he cracked it. So I just, random thing, once again, I wanted to note that because I was like, that's interesting. And I highly doubt that was CG because like I said, that would just be a waste of time to hire someone and be like, here, do this little crack for like an hour and also make sure it looks just like this and stays in focus and this and that. And I'm like, why pay someone to do something superfluous like that? So I doubt that was the case. Once again, random interesting moment. Of course, he gets there. Dell has the baby. Everything's good. He gets there in time because she won't push until he's there. So he gets there in time, and everything's good. Sticking with Clive, and this kind of skips to the end of the episode. He ends up taking on Michelle's baby, which they don't technically say it was his kid, but I would assume that was the case. Like it was more than just adoption. But I thought that was interesting. That was something I know a couple other people were upset by, that they ended up killing her off at the end with the explosion. And that did kind of suck. It was just like a random thing. It was like, oh, she could just show up at the end and that's all there is to it. Maybe, if she lived and that was actually Clive's, son, because it was her son. Then it's like, okay, no big deal. Then they just share custody and it just works, because they were already kind of cool in that moment when they do like the Lamaze class and stuff. And it was like, okay, they could totally have done that. And if she lived and then, they do the 10 years later, it's like, yeah, the kids are cool, and Michelle maybe moved out to San Francisco because she wanted her son to be near her father, stuff like that. And it could have just worked, and it's not, super crazy awkward because they already kind of pushed past that by having 2 women who were potentially pregnant by the same man go to, a Lamaze class together. So it was like, they already pushed past that. It was one of the little things where it's like, man, they kind of just didn't need to kill her off. Like, it was just kind of a little bit effed up. And it's not like she was in the episode and it's like, oh, maybe she'll live, maybe she'll die. She literally showed up, and then an explosion goes off, and then they do the 10 years later, and then we find out that she died. And it's like, well, that blows. So, that kind of sucks. Like, she just, poof, she shows up, and poof, she's gone. So that sucked, but it was just like, okay, he ends up having the kid. They mentioned the lawyer stuff because they got a second cousin, wanted to pay out or whatever. But it was just like, dang, they killed Michelle off, and it was kind of like no reason whatsoever, which kind of leads to all the fake out deaths, which I personally thought I was fine with that. But yeah, it was weird. They chose some weird deaths as well as like one odd person to live, which, obviously I'll get to all that stuff. But As far as the fake outs, they had Liv almost dying in the explosion. It was like, yeah, we can find her, stuff like that. Before that was like the big one, which I thought was for sure because they'd already done it. It was the second fake out, so I was like, okay, fake out number 2, everything's fine. So that was the major thing because they went through and they had like a full plan and they were talking about it and he left a message. I thought for sure that was the one. And then before that, the beginning of the episode is Peyton. So now that we're going backwards, to start with Peyton, that was a good one. Because I was like, all right, it's possible that they could make her a zombie, but they didn't hold it super long after she got shot. And I was like, I can't tell if she's technically still breathing right now because it's possible to, obviously they do it on TV all the time. They did it in this. She didn't instantly like get hit right in the heart and she died. She was just close to death because she got shot in her chest. And I was like, okay, I can't tell if she's still even breathing right now. It doesn't, obviously she's not moving a bunch. So it's like, I think she could get scratched, but it's hard to tell. So they, they go through that process of kind of just leaving us there, and then that's when the kids get back, and it's like, all right, what happened? And then Robbie's freaking out about Peyton, and so it's like, all right, you have to go make the cure. Liv ends up going to the mansion, and then of course they cut back, and that's when we find out that Peyton was turned into a zombie. That is also the scene where we do find out that Blaine murdered Darcy, which was an effed up scene, and we have Blaine because he was like, all right, obviously I'm not getting anywhere right now with Peyton, so I'll go shock the well and stuff. So he's out there doing his thing, talking to his dad, insulting him. And then Donnie just shoves him in the well. And I was like, there goes Blaine. And I thought that was a fitting end. I was like, you know what? If anyone was going to do it, it would be Donnie. Even without the marriage thing, honestly, it was kind of like, I feel like Donnie has just dealt with him enough, like just super close. I feel like he dealt with him enough for that to be fair. And then they just threw that on top in this final season. It was like, now it's more than fair. It has to be, it has to be Donnie. Like, he was mad, he was making money. And he killed his fiance, and it was just like, that's fair. And then it got to the part where, as I mentioned, Blaine, he's a dick. Of course he had to go. Donnie was just a douchebag, though. And I'm still conflicted, where I'm like, he was there the whole time, basically. I think he showed up in, like, season 2. And he's been a villain ever since. So it's like, yeah, he's been there. But he was also a little funny guy. He seemed to care at least a tiny bit more. Admittedly, not so much. Like I said, when he comes in, like, he didn't say, oh, that's sad. A guy was murdered on the ground. It's just like, we got to kidnap all these kids again. So, it's super close to that dickish level. But it's just like, that just sucks. It was just crazy. It was just kind of messed up because also he got killed and he was technically, like, stuck down there with Blaine as well. So it just kind of sucked even worse. It was like, he kind of got his revenge, but at the same time, he didn't 100% because he ended up trapped down there too. So I was like, man, I'm so conflicted when it comes to Donnie's death. And it was like, it's totally warranted, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I'm that hard against him as a character where I'm just like, yeah, kill him off too. And it was just like, I definitely get it, but I don't know 100% how I feel about it. Like, I definitely, like, I'm just like right in the middle, I'm like, I get it, but at the same time, I'm just like, I didn't hate him, though. I didn't hate Donnie. So, crazy little moment where, they both end up getting killed off back to back. And, of course, Liv finds out that Peyton is actually alive, so everything's cool there. And then, of course, like I said, that jumps to fake out number 2, which is Major taking the cure on TV so that he can get shot and prove to everyone that there's a cure. And I didn't realize this until, of course, I just watched it again. But he knew as soon as he, like, injected himself, like, they show him, like, he looks down like, It's because he knew it wasn't the cure. And so, of course, he just, holds out and he just keeps the thing going. And then Robbie comes in, he infects the French guy. And then it proves that there's a cure. And then that's when Graham shows up, once again going to, like, weird deaths that happened in the episode. He shoots the guy, which I was like, that's fair, because, like, the whole thing was him being manipulated. He gets his revenge, but then one of the Fillmore Graves agents comes out, like, from behind the camera and just shoots him up and he dies. And I was like, well, dang, that was kind of effed up. It was kind of like the Donnie thing a little bit, where he got his revenge and then poof, he's gone, like, right after. And I was like, dang, that's kind of effed up. Like, he was really just straight up manipulated. So I was like, that really sucks that he died. And then, of course, they go through the emotional element of, like, oh, he's dead, and Clive is talking to Liv, and then they have the message that plays. We hear the whole thing. But then, of course, we find out that Robbie actually, obviously, he didn't give Major the cure. So that was a cool scene. We find out that Major is actually alive. That was fantastic. And then, of course, we have, once again, like I said, the crazy poof, show up and die death of Michelle. Once again, kind of sucked. And then that leads me to the final non-death that we totally should have had, which they explained in like the 10 years later thing. They did not kill Dolly Durkins, and that I think was just completely missed. Like as far as everything that goes for like the last 2 or 3 episodes, even if there was stuff where I was like, oh, I kind of wish that Liv's dad was the one that was the main villain in the end and stuff like that. That I think is just 100% something they shouldn't have done. They should have just killed her off because she was like, they showed her kill her own son. That is a perfect character to just straight up kill. Like just plain and simple. That is a character that you just kill off and everything's good. And they didn't do it. And I was just like, that is so weird to not have her character have died or at least been arrested and just in prison for life or something like that, or forced to do something to help zombies, that sort of thing, where it's like the ultimate sort of karma where she's just stuck doing that for the rest of her life until unless she decides to like kill herself or whatever. And they just did nothing. And it was just like the last scene of her is she shoots her son. She's like, we're gonna kill every last one of them, and it's her and the dude Benny who's like dual wielding and stuff. And then that was it. That's the last that we see of them. Even though I'm pretty sure they were like right outside the studio and everything, which was like literally the epicenter of everything that was happening, and somehow they just like weren't involved in the story anymore, and it was just like that was it, and they were gone. No, no anything with them. It was just she's alive, she's out there somewhere, and that was it. And I was like, I don't like that. Like just 100%. That's literally the one thing where I'm just like 100%. I was against that specific moment. And I know some people had issues with the 10 years later thing. As a whole, I was kind of fine with it. It was just some of the stuff that we found out that I didn't like. Michelle dying, and then Darcy just free, just totally or Dolly, I said Darcy. But Dolly just escaping, just totally free. That I did not like at all. That was just like my personal opinion. I was just like, why not just kill her? Or just have, like I said, have her be captured and arrested. Some finality, because it's the ending. Like even if the series got like a random reboot, which it won't, like there's not enough story there. Like it would literally be like an epilogue of 30 minutes or an hour, and then it'd be like, okay, and that's how you wrap up that story, because they found her and then they arrested her or they killed her, because all she would be able to do is try to build something back up, and I don't think there's enough story there for that type of character. And I could, technically you can make anything up, but it's just like she could have had a definitive ending, and it was almost like they left it open as if something was going to happen, but they knew this was the final season going into it. It wasn't like it was canceled mid-season. They knew it was the final one, and I was just like, that just doesn't make a ton of sense. Like I don't know if somehow somewhere in there, like I feel like it would be such a simple rewrite to do. Like technically they did the Michelle thing where like they showed the explosion, but we didn't know if she lived or died. Then they just say like, yeah, she died. They could have done the same thing. It would have been like slightly cheap, but at least it would have been something compared to what they said. Like they literally could have chosen anything to say since they didn't show anything, and they chose to literally leave it open ended. Like, yeah, she's out there, and it's like that's just it's one of those weird things where unless I knew specifically that they did that for that emotional feeling, I don't like it. Like I'd have to look into it to be like, all right, did they specifically leave that open ended just to be like, you don't always get that pretty wrapped up bow, or was it just one of those things that just kind of slipped through? So I don't know. If I do the research and that's what it is, then it's fantastic, because it's like, yeah, it leaves you with that like kind of hateful, like spiteful feeling a little bit. Like, man, I hate that they left that open, but it was meant to elicit that emotion when you think about it. But otherwise, as far as like this is a story, that's just incomplete for now. So unless I do some research and that's different and they specifically did that on purpose, I don't like it. So that's my opinion on that. Let's see what else I got. Graham kill, Liv and Major. Liv and Major stay zombies. I thought that made sense. For those two characters, they literally get like the weird zombie happily ever after sort of deal. They have the kids who stay kids forever because it's been 10 years, and of course they kept the same actors as the kids. So it's kind of funny they're just going to be stuck as kids forever unless they take the cure, which some of them can't. They even reference that where it's like, what happens if someone's terminally ill and they take the cure? Are they just going to go like right back to normal, or are they cured and then when they become human, they're just a cured human? So I thought that was interesting. They don't really touch on it because they just leave the kids as zombies because it was the finale, so they don't go into all those concepts. But I thought that was interesting. They get this crazy house. They're on a zombie island, and which I had to wonder if that was an official thing or if that was just what they called it. Because I was like, the way they made it seem was like, okay, it kind of seems like that's official, but also it seemed like they were just in one random house and they had the kids. I think they were just, that was Major being Major, where it's just like, Zombie Island and stuff like that. So I don't think that was like an official thing. I think they just called it that because that's where they, go off to. But it was good. I still enjoyed the ending. Like I said, literally the one thing was Darcy lives, and there's just no definitive ending to that or anything like it. It's just she's there. But other than that, I enjoyed the ending. I thought it was a good show. I loved the show, all 5 seasons. Just funnier and funnier. Every episode just hilarious. Great concept. Don't know if I'll ever read the comics, if I'm being totally honest. For anyone who didn't know, this is totally based on the comic. Oddly enough, it's Vertigo Comics, which is owned by DC. I always wondered if they would do a little crossover, and then they had like an actress who was in Arrow, and she ended up in iZombie, and I was like, they could have done that crossover if they wanted to, but they chose not to. They kept it its own thing, but they totally could have done it if they wanted to, because oddly enough, it's, Vertigo is owned by DC, and just tossing in with the other shows. But yeah, it was good. It was a really good show. Really enjoyed it. Even, kind of catching up again before doing this review, I really enjoyed it. It was good watching the episodes again and kind of getting a feel for it. I laughed at, the same stuff I laughed at before. It was super funny. Ravi and Liv on that Ninja Warrior bring where they're hyping each other up, them hating each other before that. Like I said, the whole Ocean's heist episode was just really, really good. But all in all, I thought, as far as everything goes, I think they did a good job on it. Like I said, there were a couple little nitpicks here and there where I'm I prefer this over this, or I just think that thing just should have just been done totally differently. But all in all, I still really enjoyed the ending. I'm happy with the way they kind of concluded this series, and everyone, fortunately, at least as far as the heroes are concerned, everyone does actually end up getting a live, so I do like that. Especially considering how tense they made it. I thought they did a good job with that. Like I said, trillion effing fake outs, 3 fake outs for one episode. It's fairly decent, and they were all pretty good, I gotta be honest. So I was all right, you got me 3 freaking times in one episode. That's a good job. I think that's a fairly good job. So I like the ending. Of course, with this super long video and me catching up on 4 episodes 3 months later, the battery got exhausted, so I had to shut up for a minute and kind of let it cool down. I took off, went to Wendy's, got some food, came back. I swear, every time I do one of these super long videos, it's always right at the end. I'm just all right, let me know what you guys think. Boop, and it cuts right off because the camera starts to heat up because it's still too warm. I gotta wait till winter and I'll be able to just keep going. But that is officially everything that I had to say for these last couple episodes for iZombie. Like I was saying though, I do want to know what you guys thought about the finale. Just as a whole, do you think it wrapped up really well? Do you think it didn't wrap up so well? I know some people felt like it was rushed towards the end there, and it did kind of feel a little bit rushed because, oddly enough, a lot of the stuff that they did, it seemed like they could have done a little bit earlier. Some of the stuff they did with Liv's dad, I felt like they could have done it a little bit earlier instead of holding that mystery, because it was well, who is this guy, and when are we going to really learn more about him? And I felt like they did hold that off for a little bit. I feel like I'm not centered. I felt like they held that off for a little bit too long, just a little bit too long, because I felt like we didn't get a ton of episodes with him ultimately, at least as far as his interactions with Liv. We didn't really get too much of that stuff, but still enjoyed it as a whole. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Favorite parts, least favorite parts of the entire series, favorite moments you guys can think of, favorite episodes, favorite lines, even random stuff. They did a good job with this show. Like I mentioned, crazy premise. A woman needs brains of victims, and then she gets their memories, and that's how they solve crimes. And it's just good, and it was incredibly well written, just all the way through. I always thought this show was insanely well written, super funny. They do some good stuff as far as the serious moments that build up throughout the series, and I think it was just good from top to bottom. I really love this show. Glad I got to watch it. Glad I finally, had the energy and time to actually sit down and do this video. Of course, like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.